Katrina, experts say that the intensity and frequency of domestic abuse has gone up. Katie Ray Jones is the CEO of the National Domestic Violence Hotline. She joins us by Skype from Austin, Texas. Katie, thanks so much for being with us. In the current situation, the current environment, what concerns you most? What are you most worried about?
Yeah, I think for us, John, what we're most worried about with the National Domestic Violence Hotline is knowing that many victim survivors are currently living in isolation with their abusive partner, and their ability to seek help or guidance is significantly limited, knowing that oftentimes abusive partners are observing phone calls or watching what material someone might be looking at on their device. So we're really concerned right now, knowing that history has shown us with an increased severity of abuse and increased frequency of abuse, that many survivors are currently in dire situations.
To what extent is this social distancing to try to stop the virus spreading contributing or aiding or abetting people who commit this violence and abuse?
It's a great question. What we know is that oftentimes abusive partners will leverage something happening in society as a further means to isolate, create fear, intimidate, or coerce a victim. We have already started to hear stories from survivors who are reaching out to the hotline who are indicating that their abusive partner has indicated that they can't go to work, they can't see family, they can't see friends, as a means to what they feel is further isolate them, and leveraging COVID-19 as a means to do that. We've already heard some really distressing stories where one woman shared that her community where she's currently residing does not have shelter-in-place protocols. Her employer was indicating it was safe for her to go to work, and her abusive partner essentially said, "You're not going." And when she stated she was, he actually took the firearm out in their home and began to load the firearm. And she said that this is not something he had ever done, that they have an abusive relationship, but he had never brought a firearm out before. And this was causing her really great concern. So we know that at times when there's fear, misinformation in society, that oftentimes people who have control issues, power issues, they may exasperate those dynamics in their abusive relationship.
How is this complicating your work? For instance, are shelters operating? Are they worried about social distancing in that sense too?
Yeah, so we've already seen our ability to even connect some survivors to shelters or exit strategies be greatly impacted. We know shelters are going to great lengths to deeply sanitize shelters, keep existing residents safe. So it absolutely makes sense that one's ability to continue to do intakes, to take in new clients, may be limited. We've heard from survivors who were really holding out for their custody hearing, their divorce hearing, or protective order hearing, that those are being impacted. So a lot of the dynamics in terms of systems that survivors rely on, and what we would say many of the tools that we're keeping in a survivor's toolbox, feel like they're disappearing rapidly. And so that's really concerning on top of what might be happening in their home already.
And talk about, you mentioned this before, but I want to sort of expand, I want you to expand on it. The idea that when you're isolated with someone who may be abusing you, you can't necessarily call the hotline and seek help.
Yeah, I think that is one of the most distressing things about this. We know and we hear from survivors pre-COVID-19 that their behaviors were being monitored, down to spyware being installed on their computers and watching what they're looking at in terms of material online. So when you're in close proximity to someone, having the ability to make a phone call and sharing the very intimate details of an abusive relationship may be really significantly impacted, which is why we're really trying to encourage friends, family, neighbors to contact the hotline and get information about resources, safety planning strategies that might be available for someone, because you may be their only lifeline right now to information and help and even emotional support.
And with social distancing, could it be that people don't know that it's going on? People, friends, neighbors may not know and may not know to call to reach out for help?
Yeah, I think oftentimes domestic violence is the secret that happens behind closed doors, and it's not our problem. And so we're really encouraging folks to understand that right now we need everybody to be activated, to be aware of what's happening around them. So if they are hearing sounds coming out of their neighbor's house, being thoughtful about what that might mean. Now, sometimes calling the police may not be an option. You know, the hotline's here to serve anyone who is concerned about someone if they themselves are not directly being impacted. So really encouraging people to get educated and leverage the hotline as a resource to increase your knowledge about safety planning, because you may be safety planning with your neighbor right now.
Are there similar concerns about abuse against and violence against children as against people, partners in intimate relationships?
Yes, and so while our mission is really focused on intimate partner violence, we have had individuals reach out indicating concerns with abuse happening at home towards children, and we're providing support around that area as well. The other piece we know is that children are often leveraged in abusive relationships, and so kids can be often in the midst of a violent situation where things might be being thrown and the kids accidentally get in the crossfire of what's happening. So we're wanting to safety plan around kids in the home as well, and what that might be looking like, really taking the whole family as a unit to think through what safety planning in place is possible, what exit strategies may be available to a survivor, as well as safety planning for kids.
Katie Ray Jones, CEO of the National Domestic Violence Hotline, thank you very much. And for anyone in the audience, if you or someone you know is experiencing abuse, please call the Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE, S-A-F-E, that's 1-800-799-7233.
An evening briefing by the coronavirus